Imagine holding a coin in your hand, a coin that looks ordinary, almost mundane. A Lincoln cent from 1984. Just a small copper disc, 1 cent. Nothing flashy, nothing remarkable, or so it seems. But what if I told you that one tiny mark on this coin could turn it into a fortune, literally overnight? That the same coin you might find forgotten in a jar, between couch cushions, or at the bottom of a desk drawer could be worth hundreds of thousands, even up to nearly $1 million? It sounds impossible. Sounds like the stuff of dreams. But for a select few collectors and savvy investors, it's very real. Welcome to the mysterious, high-stakes world of the 1984 D Lincoln cent, one of the most sought-after errors in modern U.S. coinage. At first glance, the 1984 D Lincoln cent is deceptively simple. D for Denver, a humble penny minted in a year that saw millions of coins flood circulation. But the story begins with a hidden flaw, a subtle minting error that went unnoticed by the public, the kind of detail only experts and eagle-eyed collectors spot. Some call it the repunched mint mark, a phenomenon where the D on the coin was stamped twice, slightly off-center. Others speak of rare die cracks, tiny fractures in the coin's design, creating anomalies that make a common penny extraordinary. Why would such a tiny imperfection make a coin so valuable? Because in the world of numismatics, rarity is everything. Every crack, every doubling, every unusual mark can be the difference between a coin worth mere cents and one that commands 6, 7, even 8 figures at auction. And the 1984 D Lincoln cent isn't just rare, it's legendary. The story is almost cinematic. Coins with top-tier grading, those judged flawless by professional coin graders, have been reported to sell for jaw-dropping sums, some reaching as high as $844,000. Yes, almost $1 million for what most people casually dismiss as spare change. The suspense only deepens when you consider how these coins enter the market. Unlike gold bars or artwork, rare coins are hidden in plain sight. They aren't locked away in museums. They circulate quietly, slipping into wallets, jars, and rolls, sometimes for decades. Every time a collector flips a coin over, they are searching for what the rest of the world has overlooked. And when a 1984 D Lincoln cent emerges with its mint mark anomaly in pristine condition, the result is electric. Collectors swarm. Auction houses go into frenzy. Prices explode. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. These coins can be extraordinarily difficult to authenticate. The human eye struggles to detect subtle die errors, and the market is rife with fakes, counterfeits, and misattributed coins. That means timing and knowledge are everything. One moment you have a humble penny in your hand. The next, it could be an iconic collector's piece. The very coin that turns your curiosity into cold, hard cash. Have you ever wondered why some pennies make headlines while others never do? The difference is in the story, in the imperfection, in the historical context. The 1984 D wasn't the first Lincoln cent, nor will it be the last, but it embodies a unique confluence of chance and error. In a year when the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies, only a handful bear the hallmarks of these rare anomalies. One expert described it as finding a needle in a haystack, and that needle is worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Imagine being the one to spot it. You pick up a penny at a garage sale or dig through a jar of coins on a lazy afternoon, and there it is, the faint shadow of a second D, or a tiny die crack running through Lincoln's profile. Your heart races. Could it really be worth thousands? Tens of thousands? Hundreds of thousands? The only way to know is to submit it for professional grading and then to wait. The market for these coins is not static. It's electric, pulsating with demand. Serious collectors, professional investors, and numismatic enthusiasts monitor every auction, every listing, every whisper in the coin community. When a 1984 D with exceptional clarity and error marks hits the market, it creates a ripple, sometimes a tidal wave. Prices climb quickly, records are broken, and history is made. Think about that for a moment. A coin that starts in your pocket, a humble Lincoln cent, can suddenly become a legend. What if one of the pennies you've walked past every day, tossed into the cash register, or stored in a drawer could be your ticket to unimaginable wealth? And yet, most people never even look. Most people never suspect. The thrill lies in discovery, in the moment when ordinary becomes extraordinary. The 1984 D. Lincoln cent is more than just a coin. It's a story of chance, luck, and timing. It's a reminder that fortune often hides in plain sight. It challenges our assumptions about value and perception. How many times have we dismissed the ordinary, only to realize later that it was priceless? And how thrilling is it to think that at any given moment, a collector, or even you, could stumble upon a treasure that changes everything? As the world of rare coins continues to grow, one thing is clear. The 1984 D. Lincoln cent is more than a collector's item. It's a phenomenon. Its hidden errors, its shocking auction prices, its almost mythical status among collectors make it the kind of coin that inspires dreams. Millions of coins were minted, but only a few carry this rare mark of destiny. And when they surface, the results are explosive. So here's the question that lingers in the air. How many of these coins are waiting, quietly, in homes across the country? How many people hold in their hands a potential fortune without even knowing it? One thing is certain. The 1984 D. Lincoln cent is proof that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones we never expected to find. Next time you sort through a jar of pennies, pay attention. Study the mint marks. Look for anomalies, because the next 1984 D could be staring back at you. And if you spot it, your life could change in ways you never imagined. From a humble coin to a headline-making sale, the journey is real, the stakes are sky-high, and the possibility is yours to seize. The world of rare coins waits for no one. Are you ready to find your 1984 D? Imagine holding a coin in your hand that, at first glance, looks just like any other penny in your pocket. But what if I told you that this tiny piece of copper could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even $1 million? That's not a fantasy. That's reality. Today, we're diving deep into the mysterious world of the 1981 D Mint Mark Lincoln cent, a coin that has shocked collectors and investors alike with its hidden errors, its staggering auction prices, and its rare potential to transform ordinary Americans into overnight millionaires. You might be thinking, a penny? Really? But here's the twist. This is no ordinary penny. Beneath its familiar surface lies a world of secrets so rare, so coveted, that experts say finding one in top condition is akin to stumbling across buried treasure. Some have reportedly sold for as much as $844,000. Yes, you heard that right. Nearly $1 million for a coin that most people toss into their change jar without a second thought. How is this possible? What makes the 1981 D. Lincoln cent so special? And could there be one hiding in your own collection? Stay with me, because the story of this coin is stranger and far more valuable than you ever imagined. It all starts with the mint mark, the tiny letter D stamped just below Lincoln's shoulder. It seems insignificant, but for numismatists, that little D tells a story of production errors, die anomalies, and a manufacturing fluke that created coins no one thought could exist. Collectors call them D over D errors, and they're exceedingly rare. Unlike standard coins, which are mass-produced with careful precision, these anomalies happen when a minting die strikes the coin more than once, or with misalignment. The result? A subtle, almost invisible doubling of the mint mark that turns an ordinary penny into a treasure worth thousands or more. But the 1981 D. Lincoln cent doesn't stop there. Some specimens exhibit die cracks, repunched mint marks, and even slight off-center strikes, making them a playground for error hunters. Each imperfection is a signature of rarity. And here's the kicker. The rarer the error, the more collectors are willing to pay. We're not talking a few $100s. We're talking astronomical sums that can make lifelong coin enthusiasts rethink everything they thought they knew about pocket change. Consider this. In 2013, a single 1981 D. Lincoln cent with a pristine error sold for $844,000 at auction. Almost $1 million for a coin you could have held in your hand, stared at, and walked past in a coin jar. That sale wasn't a one-off. It was proof of a growing trend where the rarest coins, in the best condition, fetch life-changing money. Imagine the thrill, the adrenaline, the realization that something you might own could be worth more than your car, your furniture, or even your retirement savings. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can such a small coin carry such immense value? It all comes down to a perfect storm of scarcity, condition, and collector obsession. The 1981 D Lincoln cent was minted in the millions, but only a tiny fraction escaped with the anomalies that make it priceless. The rest became standard pennies, easily overlooked, easily spent. This is why timing and knowledge matter. Knowing what to look for, the subtle doubling of the D, the faint die crack on Lincoln's bust, the barely perceptible off-center strike, can be the difference between tossing a coin into a jar and discovering a fortune. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Not all errors are created equal. Some 1981 D cents might look perfect to the untrained eye, yet experts can spot anomalies invisible to most collectors. That means you don't need to be a numismatic genius to find something extraordinary. You just need to know the signs. And the signs are there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious, persistent, and bold enough to uncover them. Imagine walking down your street, sifting through old coin rolls, or checking dusty change jars, and suddenly, you notice it. A tiny imperfection, a subtle doubling on the mint mark. Your heart skips a beat. Could it be real? Could this small, unassuming penny be the key to a life you never dared dream of? Collectors describe that moment as electric, almost cinematic. 1 second, you're holding a penny. The next, you're holding a story worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for some incredibly lucky few, even more. But there's a lesson here, too. The coin market is ruthless. Value is not just about rarity. It's about condition. The most staggering sales, like that $844,000 auction, are reserved for coins graded as gem mint state, flawless, uncirculated, perfect under the microscope. Even a tiny scratch, a slight discoloration, or a trace of wear can drop the value dramatically. That's why collectors obsess over storage, grading, and authentication. For those willing to go the extra mile, the payoff can be unimaginable. Now, let's pause for a moment and consider this. How many coins do you pass by every day, thinking they're worthless? How many pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters sit unnoticed in drawers, jars, and boxes? Among them could be a 1981 D Lincoln cent with a hidden mint mark error, a rare die crack, or another anomaly that transforms it from a simple piece of metal into a million-dollar treasure. The possibilities are staggering. And here's the final revelation. You don't need to wait for an inheritance or a lucky find at an estate sale. You could start your search today. Roll hunting, garage sales, even the change in your own wallet. These are the gateways to uncovering something extraordinary. And when you do, the feeling is indescribable. Awe, disbelief, and the sudden, thrilling awareness that you might have stumbled upon a secret the world would pay handsomely to see. The 1981 D Lincoln cent is more than just a coin. It's a story of chance, patience, and discovery. It's proof that treasure can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for the bold, the observant, the patient. And for those who recognize it, it's a reminder that the line between ordinary and extraordinary is thinner than we think. One moment, it's just a penny. The next, it's a life-altering opportunity. So, next time you handle a coin, don't toss it aside. Look closely. Examine every detail. That little D might be hiding a secret worth a fortune. The rare, elusive 1981 D Lincoln cent isn't just a collector's prize. It's a symbol of possibility, a challenge, and a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, your pocket change could change your life forever. Because in the world of rare coins, sometimes the smallest objects hold the largest dreams. And for the right eyes, the right hands, and the right moment, even a single penny can rewrite your story. Imagine holding a tiny coin in your hand, something so ordinary, so familiar, that most people toss it into a jar without a second thought. Now, imagine that same coin could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $1 million. Sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly the story behind the 1972 Lincoln cent with no mint mark. A coin that has stunned collectors and shaken the coin world with its shocking rarity and jaw-dropping value. It all starts with a subtle detail, almost invisible to the untrained eye. The 1972 Lincoln cent was struck in Philadelphia, but for reasons that remain a mystery to this day, a few coins were released without the usual D or S mint mark. In the world of coin collecting, that small omission can mean the difference between a dime a dozen penny and a treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. You might be asking yourself, how could a single missing letter create such a stir? Well, the devil is in the details. These coins are classified as error coins, and collectors hunt them like rare gems. The errors on these pennies aren't just minor blemishes. They're historical anomalies frozen in copper. Some show double striking, repunched mint marks, or die cracks, each variation adding layers of rarity and value. And here's the twist. These coins were never supposed to exist. According to experts, the Philadelphia Mint simply didn't produce any 1972 pennies without a mint mark for general circulation. So, if one turns up today, it isn't just a coin. It's a collector's holy grail, a piece of American history that somehow slipped through the cracks. Now, you might be thinking this is just a story for hardcore numismatists. But let me tell you something, the market doesn't lie. In recent years, the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln cent has sold for astonishing sums. Coins in mint state condition have reportedly reached $844,000 at auction. That's right, nearly $1 million for a single penny that, at first glance, looks like the change in your pocket. Think about that for a moment. How many coins do you pass by every day that could hide this kind of fortune? How many jars, drawers, or couch cushions might hold the next $1 million discovery? The thought alone is thrilling and terrifying, because the opportunity is out there, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. But let's step back and understand why this coin commands such extraordinary attention. The Lincoln cent, first minted in 1909, is one of the most studied coins in American history. Its design, featuring the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln, is familiar to every American. Yet, even in its familiarity, mistakes happen. The 1972 no-mint mark penny is a rare anomaly in a series that spans over 6 decades, and that rarity is what drives the fevered market value. Collectors describe owning one as holding a piece of a secret that only a few in the world can touch. Some are careful to note the tiny die cracks around the rim, subtle shifts in lettering, or the faint doubling of the date that marks it as unique. To the untrained eye, it's just a penny. To a collector, it's a whisper from history, an echo of a minting error that could turn an ordinary coin collection into a treasure chest. And the story gets even more intriguing. These coins don't appear in large numbers. In fact, authentic 1972 no-mint mark pennies are so scarce that even professional graders see only a handful each year. That scarcity drives a competitive frenzy in auctions, where buyers are willing to pay staggering amounts just to own one. It's not just money. It's prestige, status, and the thrill of possessing something almost mythic. Imagine attending an auction, the gavel poised, and suddenly a coin is revealed. A shiny, flawless 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. The room goes silent. Heartbeats quicken. Bids start at $50,000, jump to $100,000, and then $500,000. One final offer, and the coin is gone, sold for $844,000. A single penny, transformed into a life-changing fortune. So, how can you know if a coin in your pocket or drawer is one of these elusive treasures? Experts advise looking for subtle markers. Lack of a mint mark, sharpness of the date, unusual die features, and overall condition. Even small signs of wear or damage can reduce the value dramatically. That's why every detail matters, why every penny should be examined with care and curiosity. And here's the most important secret of all. Opportunity favors the vigilant. The coins aren't hidden in vaults. They're out there, circulating quietly, overlooked by millions. But when one surfaces, it can rewrite the financial destiny of whoever finds it. Every coin you touch could be the one, the hidden gem that changes everything. In a way, the story of the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is more than just a tale of money. It's a story of discovery, patience, and courage. It's about seeing value where others see ordinary objects. It's about daring to wonder, what if this little piece of copper in my hand is worth more than I ever imagined? And as the world of rare coins continues to evolve, the suspense grows. Each auction, each market report, each whispered story in collector circles adds fuel to the legend. The next great find could be anywhere. In a drawer, a jar of coins, or even the pocket of someone who has no idea what they're holding. So here's the question that lingers. Will you be the one to uncover the next 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln cent? Will you take a closer look at the coins you've dismissed, the pennies you've pocketed, and dare to imagine the unimaginable? Because in the world of rare coins, fortunes can appear in the most ordinary places. One careful glance, one moment of curiosity, and you could be holding history, mystery, and millions of dollars, all in the palm of your hand. Remember, the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln cent isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that the extraordinary can hide in the everyday. That rare opportunity is often disguised as something familiar. That wealth, adventure, and history might already be in your hands, waiting for you to notice. So, before you toss that penny aside, pause, look closely, inspect it, because the next coin you hold could be the one that changes everything, and when that moment comes, you'll want to recognize it. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple copper penny, and realizing it might be worth more than a luxury house. Not a rare gold coin, not a centuries-old treasure, just a penny, and not even an old one by historical standards, a 1952 Lincoln cent, with a tiny D mint mark. At first glance, it looks ordinary, the kind of coin most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the sidewalk. Millions of Americans have handled one without giving it a second thought. But here's the twist. In the strange and electrifying world of rare coin collecting, some 1952 D Lincoln cents have sparked rumors, heated bidding wars, and price claims that climb into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some reports even whisper about market figures approaching $844,000 for extraordinary examples. A penny, worth nearly $1 million. It sounds unbelievable. But stay with me, because the deeper you look into this coin, the more mysterious it becomes. The story begins in 1952, at the Denver Mint. America was in the middle of the post-war boom. Cars were bigger, suburbs were growing, and the U.S. Mint was producing pennies by the hundreds of millions. That year alone, the Denver Mint struck over 746 million Lincoln cents, so logically, the 1952 D should be common. And most of them are. You'll still find them in old jars, inherited coin collections, and sometimes even in circulation. In average condition, they're worth well about a penny. But here's where things start to get interesting, because within those hundreds of millions of coins, a handful slip through the cracks, coins with strange minting quirks, coins with subtle errors, coins struck with astonishing quality that almost shouldn't exist. And collectors know something the average person doesn't. When the right combination appears, rarity, condition, and error, the value can explode. Let's start with condition. Most pennies from 1952 spent decades rattling through cash registers, vending machines, and pockets. They were scratched, worn, and dulled by circulation. But a microscopic number somehow survived untouched, brilliant, sharp. Perfect iron coin collecting. These are known as high-grade mint state coins, and the difference between an ordinary penny and one of these pristine survivors can be staggering. Imagine two identical coins. Point one is worn smooth after decades of use. The other still has blazing red copper luster, razor-sharp details in Lincoln's hair, and not a single distracting mark. To a collector, they are worlds apart. And when grading companies certify a coin at the very top of the scale, MS67, MS68, or beyond, suddenly the bidding can turn fierce, because at that level there may only be a handful known. Now add the second ingredient. Errors. Minting errors are the accidental masterpieces of the coin world. They happen when dies shift, metal flows imperfectly, or machinery misaligns during production. Most errors are caught, but some escape, and when they do, they create coins that were never supposed to exist. On certain 1952 D Lincoln cents, collectors have discovered repunched mint marks, where the tiny D was stamped more than once, leaving ghost-like shadows beneath the letter. Look closely and you might see it, a doubled outline, a slight shift, a hint that the mint worker had to punch the mark. Again, it's subtle. But to collectors, subtle can mean valuable. Then there are die cracks and cuds, where the metal dies used to strike the coins began to fracture. These cracks transfer onto the coin itself, creating raised lines or blobs of metal that weren't part of the original design. Most people would call it damage. Collectors call it character, and sometimes rarity. But here's the real adrenaline rush. Every once in a while, a coin appears that combines multiple factors and error, exceptional preservation, and extremely low population in top condition. That's when collectors lean forward, That's when auction houses start paying attention. And that's when the numbers begin climbing higher than anyone expects. Stories circulate in collector circles about shocking sales. Coins once dismissed as pocket change suddenly commanding staggering bids. Online discussions, auction headlines, and viral posts have fueled speculation that extraordinary Lincoln cents, including certain rare 1952D examples, have reached reported values as high as $844,000 in elite condition or unique circumstances. Are all of those claims verified? Not always. But in the world of rare coins, perception fuels the hunt. Because collectors know something powerful. The next discovery could still be out there. Think about that for a moment. More than 700 million of these pennies were minted. They passed through banks, grocery stores, gas stations, and lunch counters. They were tossed into piggy banks, forgotten in drawers, sealed in old envelopes. Some are still sitting quietly in jars across America, which raises a dangerous question. What if one of them isn't ordinary? What if one of them is a pristine survivor? What if one carries a rare mint mark variety, or a striking error that nobody noticed? What if it's been hiding in plain sight for 70 years? Because that's exactly how many rare coins are discovered. Not in pirate chests. Not in ancient ruins. But in everyday places, at a grandfather's coin album, at a box from an estate sale, a dusty jar on the kitchen shelf. Collectors have found 5-figure coins in pocket change before. They've uncovered rare varieties inside rolls from the bank. They've spotted subtle details. Tiny doubling, unusual mint marks, unexpected die cracks that transformed ordinary coins into prized collectibles. And once you start looking, you realize something unsettling. You've probably handled hundreds of pennies in your lifetime. Maybe thousands. How many did you actually examine? How many did you flip over to check the date and mint mark? How many did you look at under good light? Exactly, that's why the hunt never stops. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a life-changing discovery often comes down to attention, a moment of curiosity, a second glance, and sometimes, a little knowledge. If you ever come across a 1952 penny, the first thing to check is the mint mark just below the date. If there's a small D, you're holding a Denver Mint coin. Next, examine the surface. Is the copper still bright red? Are Lincoln's features crisp and sharp? Do you see any unusual doubling, strange lines, or odd shapes near the mint mark or lettering? If something looks different, don't ignore it. Because in the coin world, different can be everything. Even tiny variations can send collectors searching, researching, and bidding. And while most 1952 cents will remain humble 1-cent coins, the possibility of finding an exceptional example is what keeps the hunt alive. It's why collectors dig through rolls. Why estate sales attract coin hunters. Why millions of people still check their change. Because every now and then, a discovery rewrites the story, a forgotten coin becomes a headline, a simple penny becomes a prize, and someone, somewhere, realizes they've been holding a small copper disc that collectors desperately want. So the next time you see a penny on the ground, ask yourself something. Is it just a penny? Or is it a clue? A survivor from 1952. A coin that traveled through 70 years of American history. A coin that might, just might, have a secret hiding in plain sight. Because the truth is simple. The rarest coins in the world don't announce themselves. They wait. Quietly. Patiently. In jars. In drawers. In pockets. Waiting for someone curious enough to look closely. And maybe, just maybe, the next incredible 1952 Lincoln cent discovery is already in someone's hands. The only question is, will they notice before spending it? Sparkles. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a single penny, and discovering it could change your life. Not a lottery ticket. Not a stock tip. A penny. A coin so ordinary that millions of people spend it without a second glance. A coin so common it rattles around in jars, cup holders, couch cushions, and cash registers across America. But what if one of those pennies wasn't ordinary at all? What if it was a 1955 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, hiding one of the most famous and mysterious errors in American coin history? And what if that tiny piece of copper could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even more? Because believe it or not, collectors have chased this coin for decades. And in the right condition, examples have reportedly reached jaw-dropping prices. with top condition specimens climbing as high as $844,000 in the rare coin market. Yes, for a penny. So how did a coin meant to be worth 1 cent become one of the most talked about treasures in American pocket change? The story begins in 1955. At the time, the United States Mint in Philadelphia was producing massive numbers of Lincoln cents. Remember, coins from Philadelphia during that era typically carried no mint mark. So millions of pennies rolled off the presses that year looking almost identical at a first glance. There was nothing special about them. But something strange happened inside the minting process. Something that collectors would later call one of the most dramatic coin errors ever created. And for a brief moment in history, the mint didn't notice. Deep inside the mint, coin dies were used to stamp Abraham Lincoln's portrait and the lettering onto blank copper planchets. Normally, these dies are perfectly aligned to create crisp, clean designs. But one particular die had a problem. During the hubbing process, the step where the design is impressed into the die, the alignment shifted slightly. Then it happened again. And again. Instead of a single sharp design, the die ended up with a doubled image. Not a small doubling. Not a tiny blur, but a massive, unmistakable doubling. When that defective die was used to strike coins, the result was shocking. The date looked doubled. The words, "Liberty," appeared twice. "In God We Trust" seemed to vibrate across the surface. Every letter looked like it had a shadow. The effect was so dramatic that anyone paying attention could see it with the naked eye. Yet thousands of these coins escaped into circulation before the error was discovered. Imagine the moment someone first noticed. Picture a cashier in 1955 looking down at a penny and thinking, something isn't right. The letters look strange. The date looks like it's been stamped twice. Could it be counterfeit? Damaged? Or something else entirely? Word spread quickly among collectors. And suddenly, people everywhere were searching their change. Banks were flooded with requests for 1955 pennies. Coin dealers started receiving frantic phone calls. Because once the secret got out, everyone realized the same thing. This wasn't just an error. It was a legend in the making. The coin became known as the famous 1955 double die Lincoln cent, and here's the twist that still fascinates collectors today. It carries no mint mark, that's right. Just a simple date, 1955 NOD. No S. Nothing. Which means to an untrained eye, it looks exactly like millions of other pennies, except for the doubling. And that's where things get interesting, because not every 1955 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only a few cents. But the rare double die variety, that's a completely different story. Even worn examples can sell for thousands of dollars. Moderately preserved pieces often climb into the tens of thousands. And pristine specimens, coins that somehow survive decades without damage, can explode in value. Collectors compete fiercely for them. Auctions turn intense, prices climb, and when a top-quality example appears, the bidding can reach staggering heights. Some reports place the value of the finest known examples approaching $844,000 at all for a single penny. Let that sink in. 0.1 cent, potentially worth more than a house. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Many of these coins were spent. They circulated through grocery stores, gas stations, and coffee shops. They passed through thousands of hands. Some were tossed into jars. Others disappeared into piggy banks, and a few may still be sitting quietly inside old coin rolls or forgotten collections, waiting. Because the truth is, the United States produced billions of pennies over the decades, and most people never look closely at them. But coin hunters know something the average person doesn't. History has a habit of hiding in plain sight. So what should you look for? First, the date. 1955. Second, no mint mark under the date. But the real clue lies in the lettering on the rare double die version. The words jump out immediately. Liberty looks like two overlapping impressions. In God We Trust appears dramatically doubled. The numbers in the date seem bold, thick, and almost vibrating. It's not subtle. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's exactly why this coin became so famous. It's one of the few major mint errors visible without magnification. In other words, you don't need expensive equipment. You just need curiosity. Think about that for a moment. Right now, somewhere in America, someone might have one of these coins in a jar on their dresser. Another could be hiding inside a forgotten coffee can in a garage. Someone else might unknowingly hand one to a cashier tomorrow morning, because unless you know what to look for, it's just another penny. But to collectors, it's treasure. And here's where the story takes another surprising turn. Over the years, counterfeit versions have appeared. Some people try to fake the doubling. Others alter coins in clever ways. But genuine 1955 double die cents have specific characteristics that experts can identify instantly. That means authentication matters, grading matters, condition matters. Because the difference between an average example and a top-tier specimen can be enormous. We're talking about the difference between a few $1,000s and life-changing money. And that possibility keeps the hunt alive. It's why collectors search. Through bankrolls. It's why coin dealers inspect every penny they received. It's why estate sales, flea markets, and old piggy banks suddenly become exciting. Because every once in a while, someone finds a real one. And when they do, the reaction is unforgettable: shock, disbelief, excitement. Imagine turning a coin over and realizing you're looking at one of the most famous errors ever produced by the US Mint. Imagine realizing that the penny in your hand might be worth more than your car. Or your mortgage. Or your retirement savings. All from a single moment of curiosity. So the next time you get change at the store, pause. Take a second look. Because the coin you almost ignored might be hiding something extraordinary. Look for 1955. Look for the missing mint mark. And most importantly, look at the lettering. Because somewhere out there, another one of these legendary pennies is still waiting to be discovered. And the person who finds it next could be anyone. A collector, a cashier. A grandparent, sorting through an old jar. Or maybe, just maybe, you. A single penny, 1 cent. The kind most people toss into a jar, drop into a tip tray, or leave forgotten in the cup holder of their car. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny from 1953 could be worth far more than its tiny copper face value? What if the right 1953 D Lincoln cent, struck in Denver more than 70 years ago, could be worth thousands of dollars today? And in rare circumstances, dramatically more when collectors start competing for the finest examples. And here's the twist that keeps coin collectors awake at night. Millions of these coins were minted, but only a handful are truly special. And most people have absolutely no idea how to spot them. So before you dismiss that jar of pennies on your dresser, before you ignore that copper coin sitting in your pocket, you might want to hear this story. Because the difference between an ordinary 1953 D penny and an extraordinary one could be hiding in details smaller than a grain of sand. And once you see them, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. To understand why the 1953 D Lincoln cent has collectors so intrigued, we have to rewind to the early 1950s. America was booming. Factories were roaring, suburbs were expanding, and the United States Mint was producing coins by the billions to keep up with a rapidly growing economy. The Denver Mint in 1953, over 700 million Lincoln cents rolled off the presses. That's right. Hundreds of millions. At first glance, that sounds like the opposite of rare. But here's where the story takes its first turn. Not all coins struck at the mint are created equal. Some leave the presses with microscopic imperfections, unusual characteristics, or dramatic minting mistakes. And those mistakes are exactly what collectors hunt for. Because sometimes, those errors transform a 1-cent coin into something worth hundreds, thousands, or even more. Now imagine this. A Denver Mint worker loads the coin press with fresh dies. The machine pounds out thousands of pennies every hour. Copper planchets feed through the system like an assembly line of identical coins. Except, they aren't identical. Over time, dies wear down, metal shifts. Tiny misalignments occur, and when that happens, strange things can appear on the finished coins. Collectors studying 1953 D cents have reported examples with dramatic die cracks, cuds, and striking anomalies that give the coin completely unique features. A die crack might run across Lincoln's portrait like a lightning bolt frozen in copper at a cud, where a piece of the die breaks off, can leave a raised blob of metal on the coin's edge. And then there are off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and other minting oddities that make each coin a one-of-a-kind survivor of a chaotic minting process. But here's the question that changes everything. What if your 1953 D penny isn't just unusual? What if it's nearly perfect? Because while errors excite collectors, condition can send values soaring. And that's where the real drama begins. Most 1953 pennies lived hard lives. They rattled through cash registers in the 1950s, bought bubble gum in the 60s, paid parking meters in the 70s. They were scratched, worn, dropped, and handled millions of times. So finding one today with razor-sharp details and blazing original luster is incredibly difficult. Professional grading services rank coins on a scale from 1 to 70. The closer a coin gets to mint state 67, 68, or higher, the more collectors start paying attention. Because coins that pristine are survivors, time capsules, and when one appears at auction, something fascinating happens. Collectors compete, prices climb, and suddenly that humble penny becomes the center of a bidding war. Over the years, some top-quality Lincoln cents from the 1950s have shocked the collecting world by selling for astonishing sums when their condition proved nearly flawless. Online headlines sometimes circulate dramatic figures, even claims of six-figure values, which only fuels the excitement surrounding these coins. While most 1953 pennies sell for far less, elite examples graded at the very top of the population have reached thousands of dollars at auction, and the finest known coins continue to attract intense collector demand. And that leads to the question every viewer watching right now is thinking. Could one still be hiding in circulation? The answer might surprise you. Unlike gold coins or silver dollars, Lincoln cents stayed in everyday use for decades. People didn't hoard them the way they hoarded silver coins. That means countless old pennies remained in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across America. Even today, collectors regularly find 1950s Lincoln cents in circulation searches, bank rolls, and inherited collections. Most are common. But every once in a while, someone finds something extraordinary. A brilliant red coin untouched by decades of wear. A strange die crack no one documented before. Or a striking error that slipped past mint inspectors 70 years ago. And those discoveries still happen. Picture this moment. Someone dumps out a jar of old coins on the kitchen table. Nickels, dimes, pennies scattered everywhere. They start sorting casually. 1958, 1964, 1971. Then they see it, and just below the date, a tiny letter, the Denver Mint marked at a T first. It looks ordinary. But then they tilt the coin under the light. The surfaces flash with deep copper luster. Lincoln's hair details are razor sharp. The wheat stalks on the reverse stand out with incredible clarity. Suddenly a simple question forms in their mind. What if this one is special? That curiosity is what drives the entire world of coin collecting. Because history has proven something again and again. The rarest treasures are often hiding in plain sight, and pennies are especially deceptive. They're small, common, easy to overlook, but occasionally, they carry secrets left behind by worn dies. By minting mishaps. By decades of survival against impossible odds. And the 1953 Lincoln cent sits right in the middle of that mystery. It's old enough to be historic, common enough to still be found, yet rare enough in pristine condition to excite serious collectors. Which means every time you handle a 1953 penny, you're holding a tiny piece of American manufacturing history, a coin struck during the Eisenhower era, a coin that may have passed through thousands of hands. Or a coin that somehow escaped the chaos of circulation almost untouched. And that possibility is what makes coin hunting addictive. Because the next great discovery isn't always buried in the ground. Sometimes it's sitting quietly in a coffee can, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely. So tonight, after this video ends, try something simple. Open that drawer, check that jar of loose change. Look through those old coins you inherited from a parent or grandparent. Search for the date. Then look for the mint mark, and when you find one, hold it under a bright light. Study Lincoln's face. Look at the wheat ears on the back. Check for unusual cracks, raised metal, or strange striking patterns. And most importantly, ask yourself one question. What if? What if that ordinary penny in your hand is one of the finest surviving examples? What if it carries an unusual mint error collectors haven't noticed yet? What if the coin everyone else ignored turns out to be the one worth far more than anyone imagined? Because in the world of rare coins, fortunes haven't always been discovered in vaults. Sometimes they start with a single penny, and the next incredible find could already be in your pocket. Sparkles. They drop them in jars, leave them in cup holders, or toss them into the bottom of a drawer without a second thought. But what if one of those forgotten pennies was worth more than a luxury car? More than a house? What if a single copper coin, barely larger than a thumbnail, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even more? Because hidden among the billions of ordinary coins minted in the early 1950s is one particular piece that has shocked collectors for decades. The 1951 Lincoln. Cent with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln on the front. Wheat stalks on the back. A warm copper color that feels familiar to anyone who has ever handled pocket change. Nothing about it screams fortune, and yet, in the right condition, with the right hidden characteristics, some versions of this coin have reached staggering values in the collector's market. One reported sale stunned the numismatic world with a price approaching $844,000 for a pristine specimen. For a penny, so the question becomes unavoidable. Could one be hiding in plain sight? To understand why this humble coin causes such excitement, we have to travel back to 1951. America was booming after World War II. Factories were roaring, suburbs were expanding, and the U.S. Mint was producing enormous numbers of coins to keep the growing economy moving. In 1951 alone, hundreds of millions of Lincoln wheat pennies were struck. Most were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Denver carried a tiny D. Coins from San Francisco bore an S. But Philadelphia coins had no mint mark at all, which means the so-called no mint mark 1951 penny originally came from the nation's primary mint. And on paper, that should make it extremely common. Millions upon millions were produced. So how could something so ordinary become so valuable? The answer lies in the tiny details most people never notice. The Lincoln Wheat Cent series is one of the most heavily studied coins in American history. Collectors have spent decades examining them under magnification, searching for the subtle quirks that turn everyday change into treasure. And the 1951 no mint mark cent hides several of those quirks. Some involve minting errors. Others involve rare die varieties. And a few come down to one powerful factor that can transform even a common coin into a collector's dream: condition. But before we get there, consider this. Minting millions of coins isn't a perfect process. Every die that stamps a coin slowly wears down. Metal shifts. Tiny fractures appear. Machines vibrate. Alignment drifts by fractions of a millimeter. Most of the time, no one notices. But occasionally those imperfections leave behind clues. Clues that collectors hunt relentlessly. One of the most intriguing discoveries tied to 1951 cents is subtle doubling in the lettering and date. Not dramatic doubling you can see from across the room. The kind that only appears under magnification. A slight shadow on the numbers of the date. A faint split along the edges of Liberty. A whisper of duplication that suggests the die shifted during the striking process. To an untrained eye, it's invisible. To a collector, it's electric. Because die varieties like these can transform a 1-cent coin into something far rarer than its original mintage suggests. And then there are die cracks and cuds. Small raised lines where the steel die began to fracture. Metal bulges along the rim. Odd distortions that occurred during a chaotic day on the mint floor more than 70 years ago. Each one tells a story, and each one can create a version of the coin that only a handful of collectors may ever find. But here's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn. Imagine two identical coins leaving the mint in 1951, both worth exactly 1 cent. One enters circulation immediately. It passes through soda machines, grocery stores, and gas stations for decades. It rubs against nickels and dimes. The copper darkens. The details wear away to be why the time someone notices it. Lincoln's portrait is smooth and tired. Value? Maybe a few cents. Now imagine the second coin. It's pulled aside by a bank teller, or tucked into a roll by a careful collector. Maybe it sits untouched in a drawer for 70 years, no scratches and no wear. The surface still glows with its original mint luster. That shimmering cartwheel effect collectors crave. Suddenly, that same 1-cent coin becomes something else entirely, a time capsule, a survivor. And in the world of high-end coin collecting, pristine survivors from the early 1950s are astonishingly rare. Because copper is fragile. It spots easily. It oxidizes. It scratches with the slightest mishandling. Finding a 1951 no mint mark penny in near-perfect condition is like discovering a classic car with 0 miles. Almost impossible. That's why grading matters so much. Professional grading services evaluate coins on a scale from 1 to 70. Most circulated pennies fall somewhere between 10 and 40. Uncirculated coins begin around 60. But the real money appears at the very top. Grades like MS-67, MS-68, even higher. At that level, only a microscopic handful of coins exist. And when elite collectors compete for the finest known examples, the bidding can become breathtaking. That's how an unassuming wheat penny can leap from pocket change to headline-making auction prices. Reports within the numismatic community have highlighted sales approaching the extraordinary. Figures in the hundreds of thousands when condition, rarity, and demand collide. Numbers that make people do a double take. Numbers that make collectors start checking their jars again. Because here's the twist most people miss. The 1951 penny isn't ancient. It isn't buried treasure from a shipwreck. Millions of Americans alive today remember when these coins were still circulating. Which means countless examples are still out there, in coin jars, in dresser drawers, in forgotten piggy banks sitting in basements across the country, waiting. And that raises a question that keeps collectors awake at night. What if one of them is extraordinary? What if a penny you've ignored for years holds razor-sharp details, blazing mint luster, and one of those elusive die characteristics collectors chase? What if the date reads 1951, and there's no mint mark beneath it? Suddenly that tiny copper disc deserves a closer look. Turn it under a light. Examine the lettering, study the surface. Does Lincoln's coat still show crisp folds? Are the wheat stalks on the reverse sharply defined? Do the fields gleam with that unmistakable mint frost? Because if the answer is yes, you might be holding something far more exciting than a penny. And here's the reality that fuels the dreams of collectors everywhere. Every year, ordinary people discover coins worth thousands, sometimes far more, hiding in places they've looked 100 times before. Old jars get opened. Inherited collections get examined. Rolls of coins from the bank get searched late at night under a desk lamp. Most of the time, nothing happens. But every once in a while, someone finds something extraordinary. A tiny anomaly. A forgotten gem. A coin that slipped through history unnoticed. And when that happens, the value of that discovery can change everything. Which brings us back to that simple, humble piece of copper from 1951. A coin that millions of people handled without thinking. A coin most Americans would walk past without bending down to pick up. Yet, under the right circumstances, with the right condition, with the right hidden characteristics, it can become one of the most thrilling finds a coin hunter could imagine. So tonight, before you ignore that jar of pennies on the shelf, before you dump your loose change into a machine, take another look, search for that date. Look beneath it. Is there a mint mark or not? Because somewhere out there, a nearly forgotten penny is waiting to be recognized, and the next person to discover it might not just find a coin. They might find a story. A mystery, and possibly a fortune hiding in plain sight. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering it could be worth more than a luxury mansion. It sounds impossible. After all, a penny is the smallest unit of American currency. Most people ignore them, toss them in jars, or leave them on the sidewalk. But what if one of those forgotten coins, quietly sitting in a drawer, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if a single Lincoln cent, struck more than 70 years ago, could change someone's life overnight? And here's the twist. Some experts believe certain examples of the 1950 Lincoln cent could reach staggering values approaching hundreds of thousands of dollars, with rare high-grade coins and unique varieties capturing headlines, with reported market attention reaching as high as $844,000 in exceptional circumstances. A penny worth nearly $1 million. Now the real question becomes almost unsettling. Could one be hiding in your home right now? Because the story of the 1950 Lincoln cent isn't just about a coin, it's about a quiet treasure hunt that millions of Americans walk past every single day. And once you know what to look for, you'll never see a penny the same way again. The year was 1950. America was changing fast. The post-war boom was underway. Cars filled the highways, televisions were entering living rooms, and the United States Mint was striking millions of coins to keep up with a growing economy. Among them was the Denver Mint's production of the Lincoln wheat penny. The 1950 Lincoln cent. At first glance, it looked completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the front. Two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent on the back. Nothing flashy. Nothing rare. Nothing extraordinary. Or so people thought. But beneath that ordinary appearance, something unusual was happening. Something collectors would only begin to understand decades later. Because sometimes, the most valuable coins in America didn't start rare. They became rare. In 1950, the Denver Mint produced more than 334 million Lincoln cents. That sounds like a huge number, and it is. But here's where the story takes a surprising turn. Even though millions were minted, very few survived in perfect condition. Most pennies from that era circulated for years. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, diners, and vending machines. They were scratched, worn, dropped, and damaged, but a tiny handful, just a microscopic fraction, remained untouched, bright red, sharp, flawless. And in the world of coin collecting, condition isn't just important, it's everything. That a worn penny might be worth a few cents, but a perfectly preserved coin from the same year can be worth thousands, or far more. Collectors grade coins using a scale from 1 to 70. And when a coin reaches the very top of that scale, grades like MS67, MS68, or higher, the value can explode. Why? Because perfection is incredibly rare. Now imagine a 1950 Lincoln cent that looks exactly like it did the moment it left the mint press. No scratches, no discoloration, no wear. Just blazing copper brilliance. Coins like that are almost mythical, and when they appear at auction, the competition among collectors becomes intense, prices climb. Bids accelerate, and suddenly, a humble penny becomes the center of a bidding war. But condition alone isn't the only reason this coin has captured the imagination of collectors. Because hidden within certain 1950 cents are subtle minting quirks and rare varieties that make them even more fascinating. Tiny details. Barely visible differences. Mistakes that slipped past mint inspectors decades ago. And today, those tiny imperfections can mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth thousands. For example, collectors search carefully for RPMs, repunched mint marks. Back in the 1950s, mint marks were punched into coin dies by hand. That meant sometimes the letter D for Denver was struck more than once. Slightly misaligned. To the naked eye, it might look normal. But under magnification, a second shadow of the D appears. A ghost of the original punch. A tiny mistake frozen in metal. And collectors love these mistakes, because everyone tells a story about how the coin was made. But here's the chilling part. Many people spend these rare coins without realizing what they had. Think about that for a moment. A coin worth hundreds, maybe thousands, sliding across a convenience store counter, dropped into a parking meter, forgotten in a jar. It has happened before, and it will happen again. Which brings us to the moment that made collectors around the country stop and pay attention. At major coin auctions, high-grade Lincoln cents from the mid-20th century have shocked the market. Prices climbing far beyond what most people think a penny could ever reach. Stories of rare examples commanding astonishing six-figure valuations circulated through collector communities. One reported high-end sale tied to exceptional condition and rarity pushed headlines toward an eye-opening number. $844,000 for a coin that originally bought almost nothing. That number changes the way people look at pennies. Suddenly, the smallest coin in your pocket becomes a mystery, a possibility, a question waiting to be answered. And here's where things get even more intriguing. Many of the highest value coins discovered in recent decades didn't come from museums or bank vaults. They came from ordinary people, a retired teacher sorting through an old coin album, a family cleaning out a grandfather's desk, a collector searching through rolls of pennies from the bank, time and time again. Incredible discoveries begin in the most ordinary places, which leads to a simple but powerful question. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not glanced. Not spent, but really looked. Because if you ever find a 1950 penny with a small D beneath the date, you might want to pause. Turn it over in the light. Check the color. Is it bright red or dull brown? Look closely at the mint mark. Does it appear doubled? Tilt the coin. Are the details razor sharp or softly worn? These tiny clues could tell a very big story, and even if the odds are small, the reward could be extraordinary. That's what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every pocket change transaction becomes a treasure hunt. Every jar of pennies becomes a mystery waiting to be solved. Somewhere out there, hidden in circulation or tucked away in forgotten collections, rare coins are still waiting to be found, including the legendary Lincoln cents that collectors dream about. And the truth is, many people who discovered valuable coins weren't experts. They were simply curious. They looked twice. They asked questions. They paid attention to the details most people ignore. Because sometimes history hides in plain sight, pressed into copper, passed from hand to hand for generations, waiting for the right person to recognize it. So the next time a penny lands in your palm, don't dismiss it, don't assume it's worthless. Instead, ask yourself a different question. What if this coin has a story? What if it survived 70 years untouched? What if it carries a hidden minting error, a rare variety, or a pristine condition that collectors crave? What if that penny is one of the few that slipped through, time almost perfectly preserved? And what if, just maybe, it's the kind of coin that could transform a simple 1-cent piece into a collector's prize worth thousands? Or more? It sounds unlikely. But history has shown again and again that unlikely discoveries happen every day, which means the next great coin discovery might not happen in a museum. It might happen in a kitchen, a garage, a piggy bank, or a handful of change sitting quietly on your table tonight. Because the truth is simple. Treasures don't always glitter. Sometimes they're copper. They're small. And they're worth just 1 cent until someone finally realizes they're not.